Vladimir Putin even admitted that he was slightly envious of China's effective system of economic growth, while Xi Jinping said that Russia had made great strides in its prosperous development. So, very warm words from both sides, and of course, what is a very tense international situation.
Vladimir Putin has said, I wonder what you make of this, that he's going to discuss President Xi Jinping's plan to settle the acute crisis in Ukraine. That conversation happened during the Chinese president's visit to Moscow. Now, we know Vladimir Putin is a war crime suspect. The International Criminal Court just days ago issued an arrest warrant, but that didn't stop Xi Jinping coming to Moscow to meet him. Now, the United States have warned that this supposed peace plan proposed by China could be a stalling tactic. The US is suggesting that China could be considering providing Russia with military support. Clearly, that would be significant. Let's find out more. Correspondent Jessica King is here with us this morning. Good morning, Jess.
Good morning, Rosie.
So these conversations, public conversations that both leaders had yesterday, where Putin promised to discuss plans to end the war. What did we actually learn yesterday?
Well, we sort of learned what dear friends these two leaders are and how their governments say they're becoming ever closer. Vladimir Putin even admitted that he was slightly envious of China's effective system of economic growth, while Xi Jinping said that Russia had made great strides in its prosperous development. So, very warm words from both sides, and of course, what is a very tense international situation. But China is an ally of Russia, so it's a very important 2 day visit for talks between these two men. The red carpet was really rolled out, and Mr. Xi was welcomed by the military, by an army brass band. Beijing says that this is a trip for friendship and peace. Russia says that the leaders will discuss a comprehensive partnership. But all this talk around sort of bilateral ties, bilateral relations, it's the usual sort of jargon for these international diplomatic trips. But as you say, for Putin, just having Mr. Xi there is a real diplomatic triumph. This is evidence that with Russia's war with Ukraine, they are not isolated and they have a powerful friend in Beijing prepared to stand with it against the West.
Yeah, no one, the West, America, is convinced by the legitimacy of the conversations around this peace plan. There are obvious, real, clear concerns about this deepening partnership between the two countries.
Yes, and America and its allies are deeply skeptical of China's motives, saying that China hasn't even condemned Russian actions and has given Putin, in fact, an economic lifeline, as other countries like us in America have heaped sanctions on Russia. They're urging Mr. Xi to use this trip to try and bring an end to the war in Ukraine. Downing Street say that Chinese leaders should encourage Russian president to withdraw his troops, stop the bombing. The Chinese government says it's neutral, but as an ally of Putin, would it just step back and let Russia withdraw from this war? Or, as you said, would it start pumping in weapons to give the Russian army a better edge? I think Russia would certainly be reluctant to provide any lethal weapons to Russia because of fears of secondary sanctions, how that would go down with the rest of the world. But of course, Beijing is very powerful and it could have a very big influence in the way that this war goes.
And that is the real concern, of course, for President Zelensky. Ukraine's fear is that China will support Russia militarily. We know China have been very cautious to do anything like that. But how can President Zelensky try to manage, or how is he trying to manage his relationship with China?
Well, it's really tricky for Ukraine. Of course, they need their support. They want their support. Diplomats there have been publicly emphasizing the common ground that Ukraine and China have, respecting sovereignty, respecting territorial integrity, very important to both. But privately, they have been trying to get a meeting or a phone call between President Zelensky and Mr. Xi. That would be really important. That is high up on their agenda. Of course, their fears, like everyone else, is that if China's support for Russia grows, they currently support them around technology, around trade. But if that does become military support, that could really escalate things. For President Zelensky, the only thing they want to see is the end of this war. So I think they will be extremely anxious to see how things go today and what comes out of these talks.
And for President Putin, this is a bit of a coup. He's got one of the most powerful people on his own territory giving them this ceremony just days after the International Criminal Court says, we want to arrest you on war crimes.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a huge diplomatic win for him. I mean, he says that they're going to raise the points of China's peace plan and that they are going to have a detailed discussion about actions in Ukraine. But essentially, Russia, has been shunned by the West, so it's turning east and it's turning to its dependency on China. It's a powerful, powerful country, and it's another anti-Western alliance. And I think many analysts think that Putin is really just trying to build a new bloc and a new force with countries like China, India, Africa. And, for China, well, perhaps they want to play a bigger role in managing these global affairs. They look to Russia as a huge source of oil and gas. They've got a huge economy, and they're getting an extremely good deal from Russia at the moment. And they're also seeing Russia as a partner in opposing what both of them feel is too much American domination. So this could be a powerful alliance, but as one of your commentators said earlier in the show, analysts looking back at history say China will put China first. So it will be interesting to see how really mutually beneficial this alliance really is for both sides.
Jessica King, thank you very much for your time this morning. Correspondent there giving us the details, the analysis of that meeting yesterday. It's front page of some of the papers this morning, the pair shaking hands. But the key analysis, I guess, from the US saying don't be fooled by the peace plan. Well, I don't think many people were. We'll have more on this, of course, as the meeting continues here on Times Radio.